The M1 Garand is a .30206 caliber semi-automatic rifle that was the standard U.S. service rifle during World War II and the Korean War, and also saw limited service during the Vietnam War. Most M1 rifles were issued to U.S. forces, though many hundreds of thousands were also provided as foreign aid to American allies. The Garand is still used by drill teams and military honor guards. It is also widely used by civilians for hunting, target shooting, and as a military collectible. The M1 rifle was named after its Canadian-American designer, John Garand. It was the first standard-issue semi-automatic military rifle. By all accounts, the M1 rifle served with distinction. General George S. Patton called it the greatest battle implement ever devised. The M1 replaced the bolt-action M1903 Springfield as the standard U.S. service rifle in the mid-1930s, and was itself replaced by the selective fire M14 rifle in the late 1950s. Frequently referred to as the Garand or M1 Garand by civilians, its official designation when it was the issue rifle in the U.S. Army and the U.S. Marine Corps was U.S. Rifle, caliber .30, M1 or just M1, and Garand was not mentioned. The M1 Garand was made in large numbers during World War II, approximately 5.4 million were made. They were used by every branch of the United States military. The impact of faster-firing infantry small arms in general soon stimulated both Allied and Axis forces to greatly increase their issue of semi- and fully automatic firearms then in production, as well as to develop new types of infantry firearms. Much of the M1 inventory in the post-World War II period underwent arsenal repair or rebuilding. While U.S. forces were still engaged in the Korean War, the Department of Defense determined a need for additional production of the Garand. Springfield Armory ramped up production, but 2 new contracts were awarded. During 1953-56, M1s were produced by International Harvester and Harrington and Richardson, in which International Harvester alone produced a total of 337,623 M1 Garands. A final, very small lot of M1s was produced by Springfield Armory in early 1957, using finished components already on hand. Beretta also produced Garands using Winchester tooling. The British Army looked at the M1 as a possible replacement for its bolt-action Lee Enfield No. 1 Mk3, but it was rejected when rigorous testing suggested that it was an unreliable weapon in muddy conditions. However, surplus M1 rifles were provided as foreign aid to American allies, including South Korea, West Germany, Italy, Japan, Denmark, Greece, Turkey, Iran, South Vietnam, the Philippines, and many other countries. Most Garands shipped to Allied nations were predominantly manufactured by International Harvester Corporation during the period of 1953-56, and second from Springfield Armory from all periods. Some Garands were still being used by the United States into the Vietnam War in 1963, despite the M14's official adoption in 1957. It was not until 1965 that the changeover from the M1 Garand was completed in the active duty component of the Army, with the exception of the sniper variants, which were introduced in World War II and saw action in Korea and Vietnam. The Garand remained in service with the Army Reserve, Army National Guard and the Navy, well into the early 1970s or longer. The South Korean Army was using M1 Garands in the Vietnam War as late as 1966. Due to widespread United States military assistance as well as their durability, M1 Garands have also been turning up in recent conflicts such as with the insurgencies in Iraq and Afghanistan. Some military drill teams still use the M1 rifle, including the U.S. Marine Corps Silent Drill Team, the United States Air Force Academy Cadet Honor Guard, the U.S. Air Force Auxiliary, almost all Reserve Officer Training Corps ROTC, and some Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps JOT teams of all branches of the U.S. military,